Trump picks XRP for the United States of America's trillion-dollar future. This is an update. The original video, which you will see on an end screen card with the late great Will Fix, talks about some of these key things. But in this update, you're going to see some key fundamental explanations about why this all matters for us being Ripple XRP holders. And I get it, there's no such thing as technically Ripple XRP, but it's just a form of expression. Consider smashing that like if you haven't done so already. You're going to find a lot of value in this particular video, so consider sticking to the end for you don't miss a single thing. But there are chapters for each and every one of you. Let's jump into it. First, there's Smoke. He mentions this, and I think it's really eye-opening to say the least. It's the whole idea that we need to remember the Trump administration, quote, paved the way for XRP to continue to increase in value. And in fact, it's actually documented. What does Smoke have? What is he referencing? Well, it's this. And it comes from Securing the Rights of Crypto Creditors, Volume 99:1 of 2025. It says many codes were already discovered and quickly available to be used. I'll blow this up a little bit more. It says, only 6 months ago, XRP was 7th on the top 10 list. However, the change in the United States administration has paved the way for XRP to continue to increase in value. Replacing SEC Chairman Gary Gensler is a big deal because a lawsuit between Ripple, the company behind the XRP token, and the SEC continues to drag on after more than 4 years.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
Is this all we have? No. Let's jump back to his particular posting. We go further down. 6 hours ago, it's reported from Smoke on this clipping how the Trump administration triggered a complete reversal in crypto regulation and corporate policy. Quote, banks are now permitted to engage in crypto under no restrictions. Checkmark. And this quote from President Trump. We will make the United States the world capital of crypto. We're going to play this. This is 3 minutes and 50 seconds. We'll come back to reference some other key things that I'm absolutely sure 99% aren't aware of. Let's go ahead and play that. Here we go.
The president has said we will make the United States the world capital of crypto. He's appointed an AI and crypto czar. The head of the Presidential Council of Advisors for Digital Assets. The chair of the Council of Economic. The president has said we will make the United States the world capital of crypto. He's appointed an AI and crypto czar. The head of the Presidential Council of Advisors for Digital Assets. The chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. All of them strong crypto supporters. Every member of his cabinet has disclosed they personally own Bitcoin. His Treasury, Commerce, and Labor secretaries, all huge proponents of crypto. The chairs of the SEC, CFTC, FDIC, OCC, and the SBA, all strongly supporting crypto. This is a 180-degree turnaround from the Biden administration. Same thing in the Congress. The chairs of the House Financial Services Committee, the Senate Banking Committee, and the chairs of the Digital Asset Subcommittees, hugely supportive of crypto. A majority of both parties in Congress now support crypto. This is a total reversal of what we've seen over the past 4 years. Remember, in 2019, the SEC and FINRA issued a statement. The OCC issued a similar statement in 2021. The Fed issued a similar statement in 2022. All of those statements said the same thing. Banks may not custody crypto. Banks can't trade it. They can't hold it. They can't engage in any way. And this froze out, due to the Biden administration, banking engagement in crypto. On March 7th, the OCC issued an update. That was followed in April by the Fed and May by the SEC and FINRA. And all three of the updates rescinded their prior rules. Banks are now permitted to engage with crypto with no restrictions, any different from everything else that they do. So they're allowed to deal with crypto the same way they're allowed to deal with stocks and bonds and money. And the Department of Labor, remember when Fidelity announced that they were going to allow all of its 401k accounts to buy Bitcoin? Fidelity, the biggest 401k provider in the country, the Department of Labor immediately issued a notice saying that the Employee Benefit Security Administration will investigate any 401k plan that does that and take appropriate action. Scared the hell out of every 401k plan in the country and froze out Fidelity's efforts to put Bitcoin in 401ks. That was in 2022. Department of Labor rescinded that notice. So your clients who have a 401k are now going to be able to be investing in Bitcoin directly. The SEC in May added Coinbase to the S&P 500. Now, you figure, okay, Coinbase is finally big enough to be able to be included in the top 500 companies. And you know, when a company gets first added to the S&P, it's because their assets are finally big enough to meet the minimum value. That would expect you to put Coinbase where? You know, number 400, 450, 475. It came in at 157. What took the S&P so long to say yes to allowing Coinbase in the S&P? Because they didn't want crypto in the index. They've totally reversed their position. And then, of course, there's Jamie Dimon, who in 2019 said, I'd fire in a second anyone who trades Bitcoin. They're stupid. In May, he said, we're going to allow our customers to buy Bitcoin. And just a few days ago, they announced that they will allow you to use BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF as collateral for loans. And Jamie said, I defend your right to own Bitcoin. This is the ultimate reversal. We know that the president wants to create the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. What a lot of folks don't realize is that 28 states are racing to do the same thing. 2 of them have already passed the law. We've got 65 million American adults who own it. 83% say they're long-term believers in this technology. 72% say they're going to regard this as a key component in their strategy. 69% plan to add to their holdings in the next 2 or 3 years. If you're not letting them do it with you, they're going to do it without you. They're not going to wait on you. They're not going to be dependent on you. And millennials, 83% of them own crypto among the millionaires. Teenagers, T. Rowe Price does a study of teens, and they said, if I gave you $100 to invest, what would you buy? 57% said they'd buy crypto. Only 38% said they'd buy stocks. More than half said crypto is the future of investing. Billionaires own crypto, endowment funds own crypto, pension funds own crypto, hedge funds, half of them own crypto, 3/4 of family offices own crypto. And when the Bitcoin ETFs came out, all the public companies had to announce whether or not they were allocating. Immediately, with the Bitcoin ETF launch in Q1 of 24, over 900 public companies announced, we own those ETFs. The number is growing every single quarter. Already 90 public companies have Bitcoin in their treasury, and it's projected that 1/4 of them will by the end of the decade. A lot of people don't realize that among the biggest holders of Bitcoin in the world, US and China. And among you, half of the advisors in this country personally own crypto, although only still 20% are recommending it to clients. And all of that's just the beginning.
So think about that. Quote, banks are now permitted to engage with crypto under no restrictions. That sounds pretty major, right? And of course, citations were towards the bottom, if you guys are wanting to have those. Rick Edelman, and I think there was also another part here. It mentions the other source from the SEC filings. Again, if you're the type of person who wants to nerd it out a little bit more. So that's big in itself, right? Absolutely. The other part I want to jump into is this key segment of our outline. Shout to refer to him as the Ninja J Pirate. This is at pipe_XRP. So thank you, sir. I'll give you a follow. And he points out this is fire. Ripple has applied for a national banking license, joining the rush of cryptocurrency companies seeking to cross the divide into mainstream finance. Reference comes from the Wall Street Journal. And then again, I understand a lot of people already know about this. Like, again, this was shared July 2nd. I was gone for a couple days. Yeah, got to get out, right? Enjoy 4th of July weekend. Hopefully you guys did too. I went up north to Flagstaff. Right up there, it's about 75 degrees, and here in Phoenix it was 116. So can you blame me? So while a lot of you guys saw this, I thought I would expand upon this, and we do see here this exclusive Ripple seeks a U.S. banking license, of course, adding to the list of crypto companies. Now, the part about Wall Street Journal specifically is not necessarily the main highlight. There's another key person here that I want to elaborate about, who did an excellent job in a community post about all of this. Love his name, Stellar Rippler, right? I'll give him a follow too. He points out in this thread some really, really eye-opening things that I thought we will get into. So number one, he points out that Trump has signed the One Big Beautiful Bill. A lot of you guys have been paying attention to this, and it might trigger, for example, the final phase of what's referred to as the financial reset. Now, he points out also massive tax cuts, trillions in new debt. Some people don't like hearing that. And of course, Elon's warning, Republicans have been split. Of course, Elon did that announcement on the poll the other day. I guess that's going to be the new third party. We'll see how that goes, right? Called America's Party or the American Party. But wherever the case be, it's not about that. It's about this. XRP and XLM were built for this moment. Here's what they don't want you connecting. Well, have you ever seen anything like this? Maybe the answer is yes, but I like this. And it mentions, what is, quote, one big beautiful bill? Trump just signed his largest ever spending and tax bill disguised as an Independence Day victory. It includes permanent tax cuts, Medicaid and food stamp reductions, record-breaking border funding, trillions added to the debt ceiling. Now, of course, people don't like that, but keep in mind, if it becomes too much of a big problem, well, what about tokenizing that debt? Think about why you hold XRP. For me, it's always been that solution, especially with on-demand liquidity, right? Quiet restructuring of fiscal controls, and on the surface, pro-growth, pro-America, underneath a timed detonation of course, the old system. All right, so if that's the case, where do we go from here? Well, that takes us to this other part. Why did President Trump push this? Well, in the public message, it says, quote, we're restoring the economy, protecting the border, and empowering the people. But behind the scenes, he knows the legacy monetary system is collapsing. And again, this is your key highlight. Again, I understand that this can be very divisive for some people. They don't like me mentioning anything about Trump. Well, guess what? I'm citing some things that I think, if anything, just take it however you want and apply it to why you're into things like XRP. And again, some of the things mentioned here, obviously stellar. The point is, he's not trying to fix it. He's accelerating the end. Now, that sounds kind of crazy. And like it says, it's a new one, so a new one could rise. Sound familiar? And I will read this whole part. This part is good. Because it mentions here specifically from his quotation, passing the one big beautiful bill is a historic opportunity to turn our country around after 4 disastrous years under President Biden. We will take a massive step to balancing our budget by enacting the largest mandatory spending cut ever, and Americans will get to keep more than their money with the largest tax cut ever, and no longer taxing tips, overtime, of course, Social Security for seniors, something 80 million voters supported in November. Will unleash the American energy by expediting permitting for energy and refilling the strategic petroleum reserve. It will make American air travel great again by purchasing the final air traffic control system. We will secure our skies from our adversaries by building the Golden Dome, and secure our border by building more of our wall and supercharging the deportation of the millions of criminal illegals Joe Biden allowed to walk right into our country. It will kick millions of illegals off Medicaid and make sure SNAP is focused on Americans only. It will also restore choice and affordability for car purchases by replacing Biden's EV mandate and all the green new scam tax credits and spending. The one big beautiful bill also protects our beautiful children by stopping funding for sex change for minors. With the Senate coming back to Washington today, I call on all of my Republican friends in the Senate and House to work as fast as they can to get this bill to my desk before 4th of July. Thank you for your attention in this particular matter. The other area I want to jump into is what's mentioned here. And basically, when you look at this debt thing that he's talking about, this comes from Elon Musk. Musk points out, if this continues, America goes de facto, right, bankrupt, and all tax revenue will go to paying interest on the national debt with nothing left for anything else. And of course, Elon Musk cites this post from Wall Street Mav. At the time, that was an hour after he made this post. Wall Street Mav posts, how did we arrive at this point in this country where 25% of all tax revenue goes to just paying the interest and $37 trillion in government debt annually? U.S. government total revenue equals about $5 trillion. I mean, think about, how do we solve all this moving forward? Last time around, it was the U.S. government taking on even more debt. Well, again, think about things like Ripple's on-demand liquidity. It's not just the United States taking on the debt. We can tokenize that debt, give a real solution. moving forward. It's a game changer. So, for one, it says here the debt ceiling set by Congress limits how much the government can borrow to fund obligations. For example, Social Security, healthcare, defense. In January of this year, 2025, it was raised to 36.1 trillion. And of course, you can see that huge climb up towards that debt ceiling. And of course, it was suspended for a bit, but still, now we're tackling on, some people have pointed out more debt, like 4 more trillion. Is this the way forward? Again, draw your own conclusions, but we'll take it to this next part. And again, this is how we bring in things like Ripple. Okay, so you may wonder, why did I mention all this stuff? What does it have to do with crypto? What does it have to do with Ripple XRP? Again, it's what's referred to as the Ripple effect by Alexander H. Lawson on how global currency wars shape our lives. You don't think there's been a war when it comes to Ripple and these technologies? My God, SEC, was at war with them for the longest time. Now they're for them. Again, back to the citations of a reversal effect. Okay, the other area I want to jump into and why it matters to you and everybody else is, again, understanding, again, company Ripple, understanding even Stellar, right? Stellar definitely gets the honorable mention here. And I know some of you guys feel as though that, sometimes, like, it's like, oh, you're just mentioning Stellar as the little brother. No, that's not so much the case, but it is part of the outline. And I do coverage about Stellar specifically too. So again, don't shoot the messenger on that one. And again, you see XRP, Stellar XLM. But this part, let's jump back to the whole thing of ISO 222. And I love how this is already pieced together for me. It saves me so much time. Federal Reserve Financial Services. For one, ISO 222 is for the FedWire Fund Services, can be implemented on July 14th. For so many people, that is the big magic day. For a lot of people, right, let's face it, that you guys feel as though it's going to be a giant nothing burger. We'll see how this pans out. But whatever the case be, I'm glad that I have my bags packed, because I don't want to just be like, oh, I'm going to get into it after things blast off. No, I don't think that is a magic formula for anything. But whatever the case be, we can agree to disagree. Let's move along. You also see here DNA protocol, Ripple. Now, it's always interesting to see these citations about anything with DNA, because we know when it comes to DNA, there's a lot of particular companies looking more into taking some of that and put it on chain, because let's face it, that's where, like, there is so much data in DNA compared to anything, right? And that's why some of these companies are so interested about trying to accomplish that. As we go up to the next part, you see XRP Healthcare. Okay, so again, all worth pointing out, and again, sometimes people don't realize it. Now, I want to jump back to this part about, for example, why, like it says here, excuse me, let's jump back. Why did Elon, Rand Paul, and some Republicans oppose it? Again, like I said, 2.8 trillion in permanent tax cuts, 70% benefiting from the top percent. Again, some of these things about massive rollbacks, fiscal oversight, spending caps. I didn't mention this part, but 6.4 trillion added to the national debt by 2035. My goodness. And of course, deregulation for institutional capital movement. It's not just policy, it's precision engineered chaos. Okay, so again, kind of going back a little bit, but I just definitely wanted to cite some of these key things. Now, I want to jump down to this part, part 6 of this thread. Okay, so for one, I want you guys to see some of these key things, because again, it's definitely interesting. How Ripple XRPs, how XRP, I should say, and RLUSD lead the new financial system. Pointed out here by Stellar Rippler, Trump needs this chaos. Well, I don't know if we necessarily agree with that, but it says it weakens centralized banks and pressures the Fed. Now, that part is definitely worth your time. It forces American alternative rails, think about that terminology, to prove themselves. It aligns with anti-globalist, pro-sovereignty narrative. Okay, you got my attention. It says, meanwhile, Ripple plays both sides. Okay, interesting. Private ledger for central banks, well, we know about that. Public ledger, of course, for the people. We know about that too. they eventually merge. And then this is where your aha moment happens, because so many people point out things like, hey, like Black Swan Capitalists, he is alluded to, I should say he, it's they, right? Shout out to Verson, shout out to Vandal, but I believe Verson in the past with interviews with Edo Farina had pointed out like he's actually seen glimpses of the private ledger. So what happens when we see those big amounts merge, right? I think that's the aha moment for all of us, right? I think that's why, Forbes posted that thing of over $50,000 XRP, and as we know, they pulled that, right? You ever wonder about some of these things? People say, oh, that's just a big, giant bunch of phooey. But he's forcing the collapse, but doing it with XRP, RLUSD, and the United States controlled rails ready to go. That's not rebellion, that's architecture. And Ripple at the forefront of that, that's interesting. Thread, 9 of 10, right, to complete it. About the new American healthcare system. Because remember at the beginning of the outline, we talked about, for example, what's going to happen to Medicaid, what's going to happen with the SNAP systems, and so on. So, for one, it says, as the old financial system breaks, public healthcare systems buckle under inflation and funding cuts. Again, back to what I was just mentioning. Medicaid, SNAP, slashed in Trump's bill. That's where XRP healthcare and the DNA on chain come in. Now you have to keep in mind, mainstream news, you turn on like MSNBC and CNN, they're going to spin their whole narrative where Trump is literally going to be, labeled as this guy that is gutting all this. And, this is where the Democrats really are going to, shine and, be the ones that are for the people. But you have to keep in mind, even with some of that narrative, you have to look at the other side. The other side of the token is what? Literally what Ripple is doing with some of these particular programs with the XRPL. Again, XRP Healthcare, DNA on chain. And by the way, maybe I do more of a deep dive on them, but according to what this says right here, like it says, anchoring genomic data to the XRP ledger. So back to that reference I was talking about with DNA on chain. DNA, nothing could compare to that amount of data, right? Absolutely. Some people say that's doom and gloom, that's the mark of the beast and all that stuff. We'll have to look more into this, right? So your property, privacy first, immutable bio identity, yikes, right? And genomic sovereignty powered by XRP. Okay, I mean, it caught my attention, right? And I'm sure some of you guys might know about more than the next guy, but again, that might be a future deep dive. This other part I want to jump into, it says XRP Healthcare brings decentralized medical access to emerging markets. DNA protocol enables biometric ID plus encrypted health records. That right there, we're going to take the middleman out of the equation. We know about the medical industry can be very, very bureaucratic. If anything, the medical industry is probably the number one most bureaucratic, let's face it, organizations there are out there, right? So many different levels of bureaucracy, right? And the other area I want to get into, it says RippleNet Stellar move health payments plus ID claims globally in seconds. That right there, time is money, okay? That creates a different form of value. That means also harnessing other areas of tokenization on chain, as we're pointing out a lot about the big money. We not just myself, but many other people cite the whole thing, what's going on with Swift. But you got to keep in mind, there's a whole other element to both XRP and XLM, obviously Ripple and Stellar, than most people have, not only research, but reference, right? These don't get brought up enough, and they definitely should. Healthcare becomes borderless, tokenized, and privately owned by you right as the state collapses. Jeez. And at the end of the day, here's the final point we want to get into. Excellent thread. I thought I'd share with you guys. I know it's a lot verbatim, but this is good stuff. Not every day we do this type of material. So, point 10 of 10. What's playing out isn't chaos, it's coordination. Do you agree with that statement? Okay, so again, just that might be one of the things you include as a bonus in the comments. Do you agree with that? The other part I want to point out is this: debt, digital rails, financial reset, and on-chain health. It's all connected. I will agree with that. If you've done watching and ready to decode what's really been built, like he says, the Telegram is where it begins. And, I'll give a shout out to his Telegram. I mean, the guy put the hard work of writing this up. He deserves that. So his Telegram is t.me/RipplerCult. What a name. All right, so if anything, I'm going to bookmark that, and I thought I would share it with you guys because I do feel as though that is, as the saying goes, a big deal. And again, I just want you guys to hear some of these particular perspectives. So do me a solid if you listen to the entire outline. You guys know the drill, right? Simply type this into the comments, and that is the RIPLAR effect, right? Because that, shout out to that guy. So just type in RIPLAR effect. I'll know if you listen to the entire outline. We share some stellar in that as well. Hopefully soon I'll give you guys a proper, just stellar individually particular outline. But glad to share it with you guys. The saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%, but really glad to bring you guys these updates. So we'll see you on the next one.